everybody. Brian Harmon, my good friend, is the vice president of individual sales at the Cason Group. I think I got that somewhat right, Brian?
You
Bottom
got
line,
it. Yeah.
you're in charge, man.
You got the title right. Good friends is probably a stretch. Average friends. I'm just kidding, man. Love you, buddy.
Not as much as we don't see each other as much as we want to, but still good friends, good partners. And I'm really excited to be doing this. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, man. My pleasure.
For our audience in Michigan, Brian, you've seen, those of you who work with the Cason Group, you know Brian. He's up. He comes up and sees people, and he's been up several times. Today, what I wanted to talk about, Brian, is you guys have had incredible growth in your department. You really have, and I'm really happy for you as a friend, and I'm excited for the Cason Group. Do you mind just kind of talking about your department first? You know, we're going to talk about ICHRA today, but that's not the only thing you guys do, obviously. So just reminding people what you do for agents in Michigan, because we have quite a few agents who trust the Cason Group with their individual Medicare. So.
Yeah, I'll do my best to be brief, not go too far back, but I've been at the Cason Group for going on 13 years here in June, started in financial services, moved into group benefits, and then jumped on the individual medical train end of 2019. When I joined at that time, we were really just a Blue Cross of South Carolina general agency for individual medical ACA. Fast forward to today, doing business really in 4 main states, and have gone from one carrier contract to probably 25 for this year, with a focus in Medicare, so Med Advantage, Med Sup, PDP, under 65 individual medical, and individual ancillary products. That's really the suite of things that we do in individual medical. And what we do is really support agents across that 4-state footprint, for back office, education and training, tools and technology, certainly bonuses and trips and incentives, to name a few.
Yeah, and relationship in a lot of ways too. I mean, that's a big part of it too. But the tools have been huge. So awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you and I have been friends and partners. We were officially partners, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago now, and we kind of met. You and I met pretty quickly once we kind of connected, and it's been really good. We talk a lot about, in my world at BPI, we're focused on group, and we certainly refer agents your way and onto, to help license and support all the stuff they do on the individual Medicare side. But a huge topic that agents want to talk about constantly in Michigan, because they're genuinely curious, is this ICHRA concept.
Yep.
And the Cason Group is, I would say, in this world, you guys are very experienced. You've been doing it for a while. Do you mind explaining why you are ahead of the game? And it has to do with your state, right?
A little bit. Yeah, good question. I mean, so I mentioned our relationship with Blue Cross of South Carolina, one of our best carrier partnerships. We're one of their best agencies. They really brought ICHRA to us in 2020, which is really when it started to take off. I think it got passed into law in 2019 and then became a thing in 2020. So they brought it to us as an opportunity for them to support them on. And for whatever reason, our group benefits division is really, that's a huge part of our distribution. There's 65% of our overall revenue and employee population. Our group benefits division really didn't want anything to do with ICHRA. And we're well positioned as the individual medical team to help in that space because they're individual policies inside of a group offering. So me and another cohort, Aaron Spurlock, who sort of grabbed the proverbial bull by the horns and started to learn about it in 21 and 22 and 23. It's been a long process, but I think because of our partnership with Blue Cross, but probably more notably our group benefits distribution and reach, right? Already have the relationships on the group side. And if ICHRA was going to grow, we felt like we could leverage that distribution channel plus our education on the individual medical side and understanding of that market to say, hey, we're really positioned to capitalize on this opportunity probably better than anyone else in the market. My competitors in the individual space in FMO, generally speaking, don't have a lot of group benefits distribution. Right. So we're kind of in a sweet spot there. And then you tack onto that our benefits education and on-site enrollment support or telephonic enrollment support is really the perfect marriage of a lot of different things
You
All right.
were
Well,
you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, your
yeah,
experience with what you all have been doing with in-person education and telephonic education on the benefit side led, and your to your point, your experience on the individual side,
yeah.
it was really cool. And the fact that your market was competitive. So it made
That
sense for certain groups to go from group to ICHRA, correct?
that's correct. And I didn't get to that. So Blue of South Carolina introduced it to us, but nationally there are certain markets where the individual rates in sort of the general ACA population are going to be more competitive than the small group rate.
Yeah.
South Carolina is one of those states. Georgia is one of those states. Ohio is one of those states. There's a few others. And you've seen this trend over 5 years where the individual rates are becoming more competitive than the small group ACA rate. And so over time, you've seen more and more viable rates in the individual market, making ICHRA more and more appealing to the employer. Honestly, what we see more now is not in the small group space ACA, but the large group space where experience and claims data is driving up renewal and cost for the employer. And again, if the individual rate is anywhere competitive in the state and the group rate's going through the roof, you see these folks in the 200, 300 eligible employee space being able to save hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars transitioning from traditional group to ICHRA.
Yeah. So take me through the timeline briefly. When you first started, you and Aaron, were you all doing small group and then that's grown it? So did you feel like this fall, I guess for the audience, Brian and I did not talk a bunch this fall, not because we're not friends. It's just because we were both
Yeah.
incredibly busy doing what we do. And when we finally reconnected, you were like, man, we were doing like 1,000 apps a week. Is that what it was? I mean, was it that number? It was an incredible amount of
I mean, it
apps.
was certainly a lot. That's probably a
It's
stretch for
probably
a
a
week,
stretch.
but it was what I mentioned was the final week of open
Oh,
enrollment.
okay.
We had 1,000 apps to key that were ICHRA
Okay.
alone. There's a lot of disparity in the ICHRA market and technology where it's not like Navigator where an ICHRA group enrolls and then all of the
We're
enrollments
done.
go direct
Right.
to the carrier. Someone's got to manually key all those apps. So we had about 20, 30 cases where there's apps out of the platform, Zizzle or Sureco or some other platform. We have to go to all these individual carriers and key the apps. But yeah, it was definitely out of control, you could say. This year was a perfect storm for us. To go back to answer your question, I'll come back to the perfect storm.
Yeah.
It started in 21 and 22 for us, sort of average case size, probably 15 to 20 lives here in South Carolina. It's newly offered coverage for an employer or a small group looking to save a little bit of money. But really, you could start to see in 23 and 24, again, that sort of ALE population really having to start to entertain looking at ICHRA as a viable option because they got a couple of large claimants on plan and they just can't handle the
Right.
increases that they're
Right.
handling. So for this year, October, November, and December of 24, it's the perfect storm for my team, right? You got annual election period in Medicare going on, open enrollment for under 65 Obamacare, and then ICHRA open enrollment all happening at the same time. Tons of changes in the Medicare space with IRA impacts and plans changing and carriers exiting. Pretty significant change in the under 65 market with new CMS guidances on AOR changes, and then ICHRA at an all-time high. We will write more 1/1 ICHRA business than this entire division did in 2021 for the year across all product lines. So that's kind of bonkers for us. It's creating all sorts of challenges as growth does.
Yeah.
But ICHRA is absolutely fueling a lot of the growth along with regular under 65 and Medicare, but it's a big opportunity.
No, you've done great on both sides. And to your point, I really do want to ask that. So do you know what your average group size was this fall, or have
Good
you not done
question.
that yet?
No, I did pull some stats in preparation for this call. This just real quick. We did for 1/1 alone 30 total large group cases for ICHRA. This is 1/1 alone. We enrolled 3,000 employees out of those 30 cases. So that's not eligible lives, that's enrollments. The
Okay.
average case size of those 30 was 250 eligible
Okay.
lives.
Yeah. So do you remember what your biggest one was? or no?
It was 2,000 eligible lives. So
Okay, so
that one skews it a little bit.
yeah,
Um, but I think if you took that one out of there, it would still be 115, 130 out
interesting.
average eligible case size.
Are they in your footprint? Your footprint's getting way bigger. I mean, you can go to your website and see how much bigger the footprint's gotten since even you and I met. But are they all over the country, or are you,
Yeah, I mean that the large case that we wrote, the bulk of the employee population was in Texas, actually.
okay? Okay.
So it really, I think, I go back to it because our group distribution footprint is so much bigger than my team's,
Yes.
right? We're in 4 states. Group benefits is probably doing business in 13, 15 states. We're really not Southeast anymore. We're more East.
Yeah.
And we got great relationships with your USIs, MMAs, One Digitals. Inevitably, what happens is those large national brokerage firms are utilizing us for benefits education and technology on the group side. They get an ICHRA opportunity that makes sense because they're going to save the group $1.5 million on premium. And then they're going, crap, how am I going to
Yeah.
deliver the enrollment? And enter the Cason Group, and we've got the enrollment employee education component. It's sort of a natural fit for us to assist on the enrollment side as it relates to ICHRA.
Congratulations again. That's awesome. It sounds like a ton of work. That's why I'm super happy you were partners.
Yeah.
So, Brian, you have these two platforms. When do you decide, or how do you decide who to use or where to go? Similar to what you talked about with like Navigator versus maybe plan, a different plan source, or
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, definitely depends on, to an extent, the size of the group, but also just the conditions. Every group requires a little bit of nuance or difference in the enrollment scheme or strategy, and so that's a component. But also, Zizzle allows the broker to be a little more hands-on and involved with the platform and the enrollment. If they want to be the broker record on all the individual policies and do all the work and enroll them and do the servicing, they can do that, right? And that flexibility is a plus. In the large group space, though, what we generally see is that group broker that works for that national distribution firm, they oftentimes don't want to do the individual apps, don't want to
Sure.
super some, and so they just build on their consulting fee, and then Sherco would be the broker of record. So that it just kind of depends on case by case.
And so it's case by case, agent by agent, personality of the group, et cetera, right? Kind of like what we always do. Okay, so the case sells. What next? What
Yes.
happens next?
Yeah, we talked about quoting. We talked about sort of when it sells. We have a bunch of implementation and kickoff calls between TPA, broker, our team, and really anybody else that is a stakeholder in the case being sold. Once we determine the enrollment windows and have determined what we're doing, everything is a lot like a group open enrollment window. You might have 1 or 2 weeks, depending on the size of the group, of when those employees can make their plan selections, right? And then they're working pretty closely with our enrollment team. It's either my enrollment team if it's a health reach case, or it's our benefits education enrollment team if it's on site. Both of us will do telephonic. Nevertheless, that our team and is all about assisting those employees make plan selections in the individual marketplace, right? So just to dumb this down, for like the ICHRA is, there's no longer just 2 to 3 core medical plans. The employer's chosen to make HRA contributions for employees to go make their individual selections in the off exchange private marketplace, which goes from 2 to 3 plans, oftentimes to 50 to 60 to 70 options, depending on the county that employee resides in. So it's our job to really make that employee feel educated enough to make a transition from traditional group into ICHRA. So that's a really huge component in making sure they've got the appropriate network coverage when they move to the individual plans, that their drugs are covered, that they've got out-of-state network and coverage options, which is probably one of the most significant cons transitioning to ICHRA is if you get on a Blue Cross group plan, you generally get that national blue card to go somewhere should you end up needing to go out of state. That's not always the case in the individual market. They operate on EPOs by and large, but there are plans out there where you can get on an individual plan with an extended network with out of state coverage options. But that's where talking with somebody like us is really helpful. I think what's missing in the ICHRA space is there's a lot of players in this space, tech companies that have developed the platform for people to enroll in ICHRA. And everybody is thinking, probably rightfully so, that ICHRA is the new Amazon experience for health benefits.
Yeah.
And that's great. A lot of folks self-enroll on the technology with non-guided assistance from an enroller like our team. But about 25 to 30% what we see are people need guidance. They need to, they're on a specific medication or have a specific condition, and they need to make sure those things are covered appropriately. So that's a huge component.
Huge component. And you guys have experience with worksite enrollment and individual, which makes you an incredibly unique partner. Who is the agent of record? How do our agents, they're swapping group for individual, like a bunch of individual.
Yeah.
Are they taking a haircut financially? How's that work?
I don't think they are. So, and if let's talk Sureco and Zizzle. In the Sureco example, and this is probably the bulk of the ICHRA market. If you work with Take Command or NextBin or any other number of TPA in the ICHRA space, that TPA generally becomes the AOR, and the broker on the case, they're kind of the quarterback on the whole thing, and they build in a consulting fee based on a PEPM. This is very common in the large group space. I think brokers are very used to that.
And very transparent. The group sees it.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. But I think that's turned some people off. I think some brokers are like, hey, I'm going to lose control of this group. I'm not the broker of record. I'm losing relationship capital, which maybe there's some validity to that, but I don't think so. And frankly, the longer I've been in this, the more I realize if the platform isn't the AOR, or if we aren't the AOR, because we're the AOR in most Zizzle cases, we can't service the member, we can't submit payment, we can't set up auto pay. The thing that's missing here in the ICHRA space is honestly the back end labor. And I think I've alluded to this. They can make all these elections on a Sureco platform, on a Zizzle platform, or any other platform that's in the market that you've heard about. But there is not a whole lot of integration yet between ICHRA platform and the 150 individual medical carriers that are out there in the market. So there's a bunch of mice behind the scenes doing all the work to get the information to the carriers.
Oh my gosh.
Working with carriers is like, it depends on who you're working with. Some of them are like, hey, you need to fax forms. No, it's a total headache. We're going to get there. I'm starting to see Anthem and Ambetter create integrations, API feeds with platforms to streamline it. But if the group broker says, hey, I want to be the AOR to protect the relationship, they will be biting off a boatload of work. I can guarantee you that because my team is neck deep in it right now.
Wow.
And that's what we've always been about, solving problems with people. But I'm in the post-enrollment, post-triage phase going like, all right, what do we got to invest in more and people to be better? Because it's just going to keep compounding.
I really just said that you just took the question right out of my mouth. How do you scale this? Like the thing I admire about the Cason Group, and it's been phenomenal that you all kind of let me be a little just be somebody who's watched you grow and been very transparent with me. And one thing I really admire about you guys is you figure out how to scale, you really have. How do you do this? Because I want to ask you this. Is it accurate that if I were to sell an ICHRA case for May 1st and you guys help us enroll it, that we have to re-enroll that case in December? It's not a plan year?
I mean, all ICHRA cases have to renew on the 1/1 effective date. Yeah.
So